But India is not a concept the way you know your country to be. Unlike Greek to Roman, the broken chain, the Roman to the Christian, broken chain, Christian through to the Islamic period, broken chain, art wasn't designed to be like. As an artist, I find that idea totally... Hello, welcome to the Gora Monologues by Jeff Goldberg. That's right, this is the Gora Monologues by Jeff Goldberg, where we're going to air out everything that this Gora thinks about this, that, the next thing, and everything in between. Some of the topics will be centered around India, other topics will be centered around life, love, and the great indifference, and I'm going to come at you straight with all my thoughts. Please keep in mind, this is the perspective of one man. Doesn't mean I'm right, but I always think I'm right, so you could think whatever you'd like, and I'm sure in the comments you're going to tell me anyway. So, let's jump into it. This whole thing is here because once upon a time I did these Max Chernov podcasts. People thought what I said was kind of interesting, or at least they seemed to think what I said was interesting. And, well, nobody likes hearing themselves talk quite as much as I do, so let's jump into it. Broadcasting live from Mumbai, episode 1 of the Gora Monologues. But today we're going to start with something that I think a lot of people ask me about when they come down to India, or rather when I go back to the West, i.e. the United States and or France, two places I lived for a really long time, is what is India? Now, India is a nation, India is a people, India is a culture. It's all of the above. It's a food, it's a cinema, it's pretty much anything you can imagine and everything you can imagine all at once. But the problem is people struggle to understand it. And they understand it for a whole bunch of things, and they misunderstand it for many, 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 many more. That's because often people come to India with a certain degree of misconceptions, a certain degree of ideas already in place about what they think of it, and then as they start to find that those ideas don't match up to what they originally thought, they get confused, they get frustrated, and sometimes they just switch off altogether. Or what they do is they use the same tools that they use to understand their own culture or cultures that resemble their own in a way to try to understand this place. But let's be clear. The differences between France and Germany, or say France and the United States, or say Argentina and the United States, or say Bolivia and Germany, aren't quite as profound. Hang on a second, Jeff. What you're trying to say is that a country in South America is more closely related to a country in Europe than a state in the same country is. And the answer to that question is a solid yes. And to understand this, let's start with something that's a little bit more familiar to the Western people watching this, or even the folks here in India taking a look at it. Everybody knows that more or less Western world and its concepts of freedom and democracy and all of that, they all kind of started in ancient Greece, right? The fountainhead of Western civilization was ancient Greece. Yes? Athens, democracy, and all that stuff starts there. So many of our philosophers, so many of our ideas, so many of our sciences, so many of the things that are modern Western culture begin there. And of course they spread out from there. Of course they go to Rome. Of course they return to the Middle East with, of course, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, etc. These cultures, ancient Greek exists all the way till Roman culture comes in, and then that breaks that chain. Then Roman culture comes all the way in with its pagan beliefs until Jesus and his crucifixion breaks that change, and then Christian culture. And Christian culture pretty much continues straight all the way through until the rise of Islam in the 7th, 8th centuries, and then suddenly that starts to add value to the Western ideals of Judeo-Christianity, the ideas of democracy, the ideas of who we become. And it all sort of culminates in and around the First and Second World War, where the ideas of the Age of Enlightenment, the Age of Industrialization, the Age of the Renaissance, all founded way back in ancient Greece, come to a head and boom, you got the 20th century. India? No. Much more ubiquitous, much more fluid. And that's where the great divide of understanding begins. Because India is a country the way you know your country to be. India is a culture more or less the way you know your culture to be. But India is not a concept the way you know your country to be. Because the founding principles of India are very diverse. And you can't point to them on a map that everybody agrees with. In fact, the fluidity of the country also speaks to the absolute enormous nature of ideas, ideals, beliefs, philosophies, understandings, forms of worship that make this place this place. And unlike Greek to Roman, the broken chain, the Roman to the Christian, broken chain, Christian through the Islamic period, broken chain, unlike the West, in some places like Varanasi, in places deep in Kerala, in the south of India, places all the way out in the east, in the Seven Sisters, Assam, and beyond, there is an unbroken chain of history and culture that people can point to, that they've been living in that village or that part of that state forever. And when I say forever, of course I don't mean time immemorial, but as long as people have been there. That's real here. And that's not something that we in the West can easily point to. Surely we have native peoples in the Western Hemisphere. Surely there are native peoples who are indigenous to different parts of Europe. But those histories are broken by major fluctuations and major earthquakes in the cultural paradigms that hold them together. That's not necessarily true here. And that's the huge difference, is that the concept of India is much bigger, much deeper, and much more confusing than it is in the West. And that is one of the first things, and probably the hardest things for people to understand when they get here, is the concept of India. And one of the things that I've termed, and who am I to term anything, right? But that I've termed cultural elasticity. And what do I mean by cultural elasticity? Well, it's always a good way to take an idea and give its antithesis or its opposite as a means to an end to illustrate or illuminate your idea. Well, elasticity means it moves, it bends, it's it's like a rubber band, right? It's got some, sort of stretchability to it. I don't know if stretchability is a word, but we'll let it be a word for the course of this conversation. And then there's rigidity. Rigidity is things are stuck. There's a frame, and you move it this way, you move it too far this way, it's going to break, right? Well, India is all about cultural elasticity. It's a giant rubber band. And it goes this way, it goes that way, it goes this way, it comes this way, and it's always moving. And that's the thing about India that makes it so fascinating, is that you never really get it. Because the shape you left it in, or the shape you left your understanding of it in, say on Monday, is not what it looks like on Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday or Friday or Saturday or next week or last week or the week before or the month before or the year before, the decade before. It is constantly, organically breathing and alive. And in the Western world, where we're so used to things kind of being set, static, cornerstone, pillar, Acropolis, I got it, I know what that is, that's not true here. And that's really hard for a lot of people. But nonetheless, if you really want to understand the place, you can. But you have to allow yourself to be culturally elastic and not culturally rigid. Not show up with your expectations, but rather show up with the possibility of a question. Which again is another thing about India that really, really messes with people's heads, is that in the West, especially since the 19th century, we have relegated religion and belief and this whole conversation of spirituality to places of worship. It's at the mosque, it's at the temple, it's at the synagogue, it's in the church. It's in these very specific places that you can find on your Google Maps and go and get to and follow directions to. Where in India, spirituality and religion is everywhere. They have not boxed religion into something that can only be found in one place at one time or one festival. And again, that speaks to the cultural elasticity and the concept of India, because the things that drive people and their decision making, even in everyday choices, from what color shirt to wear to what food to eat tonight, has to do with something connected to the planets, to their beliefs, to the religion, to the way they worship. That's a real thing here. And that's something that a lot of people misunderstand. And not only misunderstand, they even judge. And that judgment is the thing that kills their ability to understand this concept. And it's the thing that makes them rigid. And it's the thing that keeps them in the frame of their thought. And unfortunately, it's the thing that makes this place hard for them. And then, worse still, they start to offer up all these unsophisticated arguments about the place or against the place because they don't understand it. So because naturally you don't understand it, you don't like it. Because you don't like it, you have to find what's wrong with it. And then they say, oh, it's dirty. Oh, the roads are broken. Oh, the government's bad. Hang on a second. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that those things aren't true. And I'm positive in the comments, you're going to tell me that they're true. You're going to take pictures and show me that they're true. Folks, I live here. I'm well aware of the fact that we have some problems. But that is such an unsophisticated argument. Because certainly no one living in unsanitary conditions or in filth or living with bad governance and or bad roads or any sort of one of these arguments you want to put across is okay with that. There's this expectation, oh, well, they're okay with it. And that's not true. No one is. But the fact is that there is something far more complex about the place. And there's something far more enriching about the place. But you, and I don't mean you, I'm talking to the general you, so please don't get offended. You are missing that because you're only seeing the surface level. And isn't that the great tragedy of the world today, from what we see on our phones, to what we see on the television, to what we hear on a YouTube podcast, which you may or may not believe, is that we take it at face value and we make a decision about it, and suddenly that becomes the absolute whole, unchangeable, forever truth of it. And we miss out on the opportunity to research it, to learn about it, to go there, to visit it, to taste it, to touch it, to experience it. And we allow someone else's experience to become the shorthand of our whole understanding of something. And that is so sad, actually. It's really tragic, if you ask me. Because today, we got planes and plane tickets. We got phones and internet and Wi-Fi. We can call each other. We can visit each other. We can look at each other. We got CCTV and cameras and webcams and the whole lot. But still, we allow tired cliches. We allow boring paradigms. We allow, I'll say it, racist point of views to become the ideas we traffic about a place and a people and a space that potentially you may not like. I'm not asking you to like it. Since when did I say like it? I didn't. But I'm asking you to try it. Now, some of you, if you're coming to me for the first time, you don't know this, but some of you may know I'm an artist. And one of the things I think a lot about when it comes to art is this whole game we play today with I like it, or it's good, or 2 thumbs up, 5 stars, whatever critical reviews you listen to. That game is all about liking stuff. As an artist, I find that idea totally reprehensible, gross. I don't like it. And I'll tell you why I don't like it. Because art wasn't designed to be liked. It's not a teenager in high school who needs more friends. Art is designed to agitate. We have confused like for agitate. We have confused sympathy for empathy. We are allowing ourselves to be bought and sold in a world where the algorithm tells us what we like, and we should only look at what we like, and we live in the echo chamber of that. Art is designed to agitate you. It's designed to instigate you. It's designed to have you react. It's designed to be punk rock. It's designed to break something inside of you that makes you think more deeply, more profoundly, that makes you want to go out and get educated about it. It makes you want to go out and organize about it. That makes you just think. I know what you're thinking. I ain't got time to think, Jeff. Capitalism with its big, sheath, and death itself is at my door knocking away. I got bills to pay, food to eat, friends to call, Instagram to catch up on. Folks, this is not the podcast for you if that's what you want to do. I'll be very honest with you. My podcast is designed to do one thing. It is designed to challenge you to think more deeply and more profoundly about what you're actually doing. I'm never going to offer up an answer. I'm going to offer up suggestions. I'm going to offer up questions. I'm going to put my finger in your eye, obviously metaphorically speaking, and try to get you to react. Not because I want to upset you, because I want you to actually think more deeply about the world and the way in which you're living. Today's topic is India as a concept. That in itself requires a little bit of thinking about, and that in itself, I hope, begins to agitate you to think and learn about this place where you could possibly find something meaningful and hopeful and beautiful for yourself. This has been episode 1. We're going to cut it together with a bunch of other stuff we shot before, and hopefully it'll come together and look like something interesting that you want to watch, and stick around for episode 2. Like I said, I'm Jeff Goldberg. These are the Gora Monologues, and I'm going to be hitting you hard with all the things that I think, so that hopefully you come back at me with the things you think, and we can start a conversation here and now.